If there'd been talks of a ceasefire, no one here would have heard them. Southern Lebanon this morning, again blasted by dozens of Israeli rockets. Whole apartment blocks obliterated. No longer homes, but holes in the ground. This relentless bombing has been near continuous for almost a week. On our way to the usually bustling southern city of Tyre this morning, deserted streets tell a story of mass evacuation. A few seconds ago, we heard the bang. You can just see the black smoke rising in the distance there. That's been the rhythm of this conflict this morning. Just from the east, we heard outgoing. Then a little while later, you hear Israeli jets overhead, and then you hear the explosion. And that rhythm has been repeated again and again this morning. In this Hezbollah stronghold in South Beirut, another rocket into a densely populated area of the city. A precision hit, according to Israel, successfully killing Mohammed Surur, the head of Hezbollah's Air Force unit, who they say was responsible for several attacks against Israel. But despite the growing number of senior military leaders killed and civilians caught in the crossfire, Hezbollah politicians are still emboldened. Israel are saying no to a ceasefire at the moment. Do you want a ceasefire?
First of all, what does it mean? There is no clarity about the terms of a truce. For how long? For a specific period? They should stop shooting in Gaza. Then we will stop.
So you refuse a ceasefire until there is an end of violence in Gaza?
If the ceasefire does not include Gaza, it is rejected.
How long are you prepared to carry on this fighting for?
When it comes to defending the homeland, our country, we are ready until the very end.
The brutal scars etched across southern Lebanon make it hard to picture what an end to this conflict may look like. Again and again, the Israeli Air Force struck targets today, all linked, it says, to Hezbollah. Among the infrastructure hit, a bridge to the Syria-Lebanon border. Israel claims it was used to transport weapons. At another border crossing, civilians carry all they can over the Syrian border, back into a country they once fled. In just 3 days, over 13,000 Syrians, mostly those who fled for safety into Lebanon, are said to have returned from one war-torn country to another. Each day, the number of displaced is growing. Lebanon's government said the now 500 shelters in the country are accommodating more than 70,000 people. How old are you? Ali, his mother Dalia, and the rest of their family have been calling this classroom at a school in Tyre home for the last 2 days. Your English is very good. And yet her faith in Hezbollah is unfaltering. There is talk of a ceasefire. How much do you want this fighting to stop?
We want what Hezbollah is asking for the war in Gaza to stop. That's our priority. That's what we really want.
To Gaza's the priority.
Until now, we aren't facing anything as bad as the people in Gaza. They've been suffering for years and have suffered much more than us.
The missiles continue to fire in both directions. The number of displaced continues to rise. The list of the dead grows longer. No ceasefire in sight.
And Paul joins us now live from the Lebanese city of Tyre, which is about 100 miles up the coast from where I'm standing in northern Israel. Paul.
Yeah, for a brief period this morning, there was a sense of hope. That word ceasefire started to be bandied about. That hope soon vanished because for all the international pressure from all the other nations, the two parties at the centre of the conflict here, Israel and Lebanon's Hezbollah, are as entrenched as ever. Right now, Benjamin Netanyahu is in New York. He's about to tell the UN tomorrow that he is not backing down. As you heard from our interview with a senior Hezbollah politician there, Hezbollah are not backing down. Earlier on, we heard a salvo of Hezbollah missiles being fired north to Israel. We lost count of how many. We soon found out because the IDF put out a press release saying that they'd just intercepted 40 Hezbollah rockets. And then the return fire, that familiar rumble of Israeli jets in the sky, the boom, and then searching the skyline to see from which village smoke was rising. That's a pattern that continued again and again. This is a lethal game of who will blink first. And as of right now, no one is blinking.
Thanks, Paul. Well, the United States lent its hand to support for a ceasefire at the UN in New York. But with the other hand, it was shaking on an $8.7 billion arms deal with Israel's Ministry of Defense. That news will be welcomed by the 60,000 or so displaced Israelis here who believe a ground invasion of Lebanon will ultimately allow them to return to their homes. I've been speaking to some of them near the northern border. As Western powers were calling for a 21-day ceasefire this morning, dozens of Hezbollah rockets were intercepted by Israeli defences a few miles north of Haifa. Some landed closer to the border, near the town of Kiryat Shmona, where most of the population has been evacuated. It's the most bombed place in northern Israel since Hezbollah started firing in support of Hamas after October 7th last year. Meir is one of thousands being housed in hotels and is deeply opposed to a ceasefire, which he thinks would mean he'll never be safe to go home. Would you be angry if they cease fire now?
Me, myself, yeah. Yeah. Because the enemy is not going to disappear. They don't want a peace, okay? They want to destroy us. The Jews. Destroy the Jews. They say it. Why should I think about them as a human being after what they did in the 7th in October? I'm not going to leave the problem to my grandchildren.
That's the attitude driving much of the Israeli government. As Prime Minister Netanyahu went to the UN in New York, his far-right coalition partners made clear they would bring him down if Israel stops now. Our policy is clear, he said. We are continuing to strike Hezbollah with full force, and we will not stop until we reach all our goals. Israeli tanks have been moved north. The IDF said it was performing drills for combat inside Lebanon. The top of those hills is where the Lebanese border begins, and that settlement on the top there is the last Israeli kibbutz. Now that area is all evacuated, but areas like this, about 11 kilometers away, are vulnerable to stray rockets, and that's exactly what happened here in Sar yesterday morning.
Now the bomb fall here, you see the tree?
Just there.
A few meters.
Yair and
from the
Noah
tree.
live a few yards
So
away
the
from where the
damage is
rocket
on
landed, injuring
house.
2 workers.
I want to check if the bunker is open, okay?
Right now, they're living in fear, but are firmly opposed to more war and an invasion of Lebanon.
I personally think that we can reach the goal without ground invasion. I'm sure about it. Everybody knows what it is. With more security, that Hezbollah will not go south to the Litani River. It's not a dream. It is possible.
I think Netanyahu at the moment is not making the decisions in the focus of the Israeli people, okay? As much as I want the secure and peace to come here to the north, I want the 101 hostages back in Israel. I think if I was abandoned, they were abandoned much more.
There is no sign in Gaza of anything that makes bringing the hostages home any closer. Today, an airstrike on a school in Jabalia, housing thousands of displaced Palestinians, killed at least 14 people, according to medics. No ceasefire here with Hamas means no ceasefire with Hezbollah, leaving Israelis, Palestinians, and now Lebanese all wondering how any of this is supposed to end. Well, to talk about what happens next, I'm joined from near Tel Aviv by Major General Yaakov Amidror, who served as National Security Advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu between 2011 and 2013. Thank you for joining us. Can you tell us what would be the military strategy if a ground invasion goes ahead?
We have two goals in this war in Lebanon. One
is to move Hezbollah north, so Hezbollah cannot do Hezbollah version of the 7th of October, to ride into Israel. For that, we have to push them to the north. If it will not be done with an agreement, it will be done by military forces, ground forces, which will go into South Lebanon, clean it from Hezbollah, killing those Hezbollah terrorists which are still in the south, and destroy all the infrastructure of Hezbollah in the south. The second goal is to erode the ability of Hezbollah to launch missiles, rockets into Israel. Remember, the war began in the north in the 8th of October, when Hezbollah, without any provocation of the state of Israel, began to launch missiles, rockets, and drones into Israel. By the way, in the last 11 months, more than 9,000 rockets and missiles. I didn't see the world standing and doing whatever is needed to stop Hezbollah, but when the IDF moved to offensive and show its capabilities, many countries are rising and saying, hey, stop, it's bad. Where had they been in the last 11 months, during which Hezbollah launched thousands of rockets and missiles into Israel? So now we are in the momentum. We don't have any interest to stop. You say that it is the extreme right wing of the coalition who is pressing Bibi. Benny Gantz is not right wing. I am not extremist in right wing. I think that professionally, not because of ideology, we should not stop the momentum of the IDF. We are now in the momentum. Hezbollah is weaker because we killed many of its leadership, big part of its leadership, and we destroy many of its missiles. We should continue.
But how do you get out of that situation? Wherever you push Hezbollah back, they will still have more rockets to fire on you. Are you talking about an occupation, an indefinite occupation of southern Lebanon again?
As I said, we have two goals. One is to put Hezbollah, and if for that we will have to be in South Lebanon, we will be in South Lebanon. We will not let the monster of Hezbollah to be 500 meters from Israeli communities. It will not happen. The mistake that we did in Gaza, we are not going to do again in Lebanon. And it is not well connected to the other goal, which is to erode its ability to launch rockets and missiles into Israel. What is the alternative?
Yes,
what is the alternative? To let Hezbollah, with all its forces, to be 500 meters from Israeli communities, and whenever Hezbollah decide, like he decided in the 8th of October, without any provocation of Israel, to attack, and we will have another 7th of October, but in the north. That will not happen.
But isn't the alternative a ceasefire in Gaza, which is what so much of your own allies, including Britain, are now pressing for? That is what Hezbollah says would end its attacks to the north of Israel.
So what you are offering now is saying, guys, because Hezbollah needs a ceasefire, and you have to stop the momentum, you have to give up your demand to get the hostages in Gaza back and stop the fire in Gaza. Very logical, I must say.
Isn't it the war in Gaza that stops the hostages coming back?
No. What's stopping back is the fact that Hamas doesn't want to give the hostages. Hamas can give those tomorrow morning, and it will be much easier for Hamas. But Hamas wants to keep the hostages. This is the only asset that Hamas has. And after the 7th of October, we will not let Hamas to regroup in Gaza. We will smash Hamas to the level in which Hamas cannot threaten Israel in the future. What is the alternative is to give Hamas to regroup and to build again its capabilities and to wait for another 7th of October. It's not what I'm saying, it's what they said that they will do whenever they will have the opportunity. They will not have the opportunity.
General Yaakov Amidror, thank you very much for your time. Well, a little earlier today, I spoke to Sari Hanafi, who's a professor of sociology at the American University of Beirut, and I asked him if people in Lebanon are now expecting a ground invasion and all-out war with Israel.
Yes, people are alarmed. In any case, So far, we have 650 Lebanese killed, civilians, and around 3,000 injured. So, ground invasion or not, Israel is really waging its ugly war against Lebanon.
What do you think the effect of a ground invasion will be?
I think in short term it will be disastrous because if they will do like 2006, it means that destroyed the Lebanese infrastructure. It will be a heavy blow to the everyday life of the Lebanese. But I think in a middle range, it will be a graveyard for the Israeli soldiers.
Right, Israel has much greater military capability now than it had in 2006, and its intelligence certainly seems to be much better than it was then, judging from its airstrikes. I mean, how can Hezbollah fight back?
The intelligence is not only the Mossad intelligence, it's also UK intelligence, United States intelligence, and France intelligence, Germany intelligence. All they collaborate with Mossad to undermine any possibility of peace process. So let's face it, let's tell it clearly. Hezbollah has a chain of transmitting arms from Iran to Iraq to Syria to Lebanon.
And what effect is this having on popular attitudes towards Hezbollah?
You have part of the Lebanese, they are against, and they are very worried that Lebanon will be destroyed because of Hezbollah solidarity with Gaza people and with the Palestinian people. But this division is usual in any countries. I think in your UK country we saw amazing demonstration, and nevertheless the UK government until today they still sending arms to continue this genocidal war in Gaza.
Is it the case now that unless there is a ceasefire in Gaza, the war in Lebanon will continue? There is no question of decoupling and having a ceasefire in the north while the Gaza war carries on.
Well, there is some diplomatic effort now, and a lot of gossip started from Qatar, United States, France, that they want to have a diplomatic solution to this hostility. But I don't think Netanyahu will accept without a heavy price from Hezbollah. And I don't think Hezbollah will accept it, decoupling Palestinian issue from their solidarity with the Palestinian issue. They cannot stop this solidarity while Israel is waging this genocide.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.